Hello, sir.
Hey there, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great, yeah, nice to see you.
Welcome to our humble pad. You
It's
first.
not so humble, I would say. It's very swish.
It's a very good, and it's very clinical, I would say.
Yeah?
You'll be sitting over there. There's a
Okay.
coffee for you.
Lovely.
Estamos aqui no hotel no Soho, em Londres, para conversar com Tom Chaplin, ex-membro da banda Keane, que agora lança um novo álbum em outubro, The Wave, novo álbum solo. Olá.
Hola.
Online and all the people talking about yourself now that you're coming back and a solo career, and people are saying how happier and more healthier you look. So just to make clear, you are happier and healthier.
Yes. You know, I went through a very awful stage of my life, in 2013, 14. They were just really terrible years for me. I had an addiction that spiraled out of control, and it nearly ruined everything. It pretty much took away all the good relationships in my life. It emptied me of all enthusiasm, particularly to be creative and to make music, and it nearly killed me. So it was a very difficult time, and really the last year and a half, 2 years are about coming back from the brink, and to be sat here now and to feel so happy and excited is something of a miracle almost.
Yeah. So as I was saying before the cameras start rolling, the last time I met you was 2012. You were promoting with Richard. Strange Lands was the last Keane album, and I read that right after you tried, the very next year you tried to do a solo album. For some reason it didn't happen. So why it took so long, and why it didn't happen in 2013?
Well, I think the main reason was that I had ridiculous expectations when it came to making a solo record. I mean, the only point of reference I had in terms of writing was Tim from Keane.
Yeah.
And his process for writing is to lock himself away for weeks and weeks on end with little or no interference, and to come up with these songs entirely on his own. And present these kind of fully formed songs at the end of it. And that's his method of doing things. And I thought, well, that's the way I've got to make a record, know. And so that's at the start when I said to the guys in Keane, look, I want to take a break so I can do this solo album. I then went into this kind of process, full guns blazing, right, I'm going to get in my studio, I'm going to write. And of course, that's what I did for a few months, and then I just completely ran out of steam. And what I had was...
Why you run out of steam?
Well, I think because I had a handful of songs, and I was very attached to these songs, and one or two of them were pretty good, I think. But I think the process of becoming a good songwriter is that you have to write, and you have to write a lot of rubbish before you get to the good stuff. But I was very fixated on what I've done and what I've slaved over. This is good enough, and this has got to be the solo album. And unfortunately, the reaction I was getting from people was, it's not quite good enough.
Okay.
And so...
You're a perfectionist.
Well, partly, but I think it's more about doing justice to who you are and what you've got. So, I did want to make an album that I'd be incredibly proud of, and it seemed to me the reaction I was getting was that these songs are not going to do that for you. So, unfortunately, my way of dealing with that was just to throw in the towel and say, oh well, fuck it, I can't do it, And there's all through that year, my problems with drugs had been resurfacing, and at the point that I stopped writing, the drug taking just completely overtook everything. and I completely dried up towards the end of that year. And during 2014, you know, I barely did anything at all.
Let's talk about the new songs.
Yeah.
So why are you talking about your dark times, the dark periods? Because it has to do with the new songs, right?
Absolutely.
Quicksand.
Yeah.
So in the lyrics you say, life's gonna bring you glory, but there's another side of the story. Get up and suck it up. You keep rolling on, and you use words like bounce back and get up. Do you really need the sad times to achieve the good times, the happy times?
That's my own experience, you know, and that's the thing about the song. It's a song to my daughter. In fact, it's a letter to her.
Yeah.
You know, based on my own experience of life, I wanted to tell her what I think reality is like. You know, I grew up in an environment where I thought that life would be pretty easy, you know, and I don't think I was made aware of the ups and downs that might come my way, and I was really very ill-equipped to deal with sadness and anxiety and fear, I suppose. So yeah, when I got out into the big wide world, I didn't have the tools to cope with that stuff, and I don't want to pass that same problem on to my daughter. So I wanted to write her a song that isn't a kind of sugar-coated view of the world. Yeah. It's like, you will have great times, you'll also have some really terrible times. But you know, the thing about that song is that it's set in relief by saying in the chorus, you know, but if you crash land in the quicksand, I will pick you up, I'll pull you out. You know, basically, it's a lovely promise I can make to her now, because, you know, when I was in the full throes of my addiction, there's no way I could have made that promise to her. But now I know that for the rest of my life, you know, I will be there for her if she really needs me. And so yeah, the song is kind of about those two things.
The other song, Hardened Heart. So in this song, you sing about, it's way too hard on my own, I really need a way out, I drove it to the point of madness just to feel something real. Oh my God, it resonates with me. With all of us,
hopefully,
right?
Hopefully, yeah.
When was your low point, and what was the way out?
Well, my lowest point was the very beginning of 2015. So 2014, it'd been a weird year because actually my daughter had been born in March of 2014. And the couple of months around her birth had been fantastic. And I'd really been there, total hands-on dad, totally in love with this bright new baby that we had. But as time went on during that year, the problems, my personal problems, you know, resurfaced in a major way. And by the end of the year, I had really, you know, ruined the relationship I had with my wife and with my daughter and with the people that loved me. And yes, towards the end of January of that year, I went on one of these massive binges that kind of characterized my drug use. And I thought I was going to die. I thought, this is it. I felt like my heart was beating all over the shop, and I couldn't breathe. And I was sort of in a friend's house, and no one there. He just left me the keys, and so I was there all alone. And I thought, I'm going to keel over, and this is it. And there was a voice in my head that said, if you make it through to the morning, you've got to change. Because all I could see was either I was going to die or I could get better. And those were my two choices. When I woke up in the morning, I thought, hang on, I still feel the same way. I still feel like I want to change. Like very often after, you know, I get that sense the night before thinking, you know, when you wake up tomorrow, things are going to change. And I'd wake up next day and things didn't change. But this time around, I thought to myself, I really mean it this time. I've had enough. I'm sick of this life that I've made for myself. I'm sick of hurting other people. I'm tired of not having a relationship to myself. And so I started, you know, I set about trying to change myself and become a decent human being again. And it was tough. You know, it was really difficult at first. I had to kind of force myself into, you know, even going to my studio. You know, I thought, I don't want to make music. I don't care about music anymore. I've had enough of it. You know, and I just said, maybe if I go and sit in there for 5 minutes, I'll feel differently. And against all my kind of will, I just got up and I went and I sat in my studio. I thought, oh yeah, I remember this. This is good. This could be nice. And it was just doing little things like that. A lot of intense psychotherapy that I had as well. Gradually began to reconnect with life and with myself, and started to see how a life without drugs could actually be a really beautiful thing. And these relationships with my family and my friends and people around me started to be repaired. And it was 2015 went from being this disastrous, had this kind of disastrous start, to being one of the, if not the best year of my entire life, because, you know, almost miraculously things changed, and you know, I became a much happier, more peaceful person.
Wiser.
Absolutely. You can't, you know, if you survive that stuff, of course, you become wiser. I think that was the thing. I'd sort of, you know, I, as I said, I did a lot of psychotherapy, so I really reflected on who I don't think I knew who I was, you know. And in fact, you know, my addiction had forced me to look at myself and to explore myself, and that was all really interesting. It's like I had looked forward to going to see this guy for therapy and talk about my past and the reason I had felt sad, or, you know, anxieties, and suddenly I came to terms with that stuff and I owned it, and it was very liberating, and it was rich pickings for writing songs as well.
You said in an interview, fame is a kind of a mask.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It is. Michael Jackson used to say that.
Yeah.
Kind of. Would you say you were not ready for fame?
Oh, I would, yeah, definitely say I was not ready for fame. I mean, the thing was, you know, I think a lot of people, Michael Jackson's a great example. I think a lot of people who are driven to be frontmen or, you know, performers are driven by insecurity. So the same thing that makes you want to get out on stage and present to the world this image of someone who knows who they are, certain of who they are, has this voice or this way of performing that connects with hundreds or thousands or millions of people. Oh, well, they must be all right. They must be okay. But of course, the only reason you would go and do that in the first place is you're driven by a deep sense of insecurity, a deep sense of people don't respect me, or I need to be heard, or I need to be wanted. So it's a very strange conflict, you know, and so I see why. I mean, you know, Michael Jackson is so sad because he had so many demons, and he clearly, you know, he did use his fame as a mask and his music as a mask, but he never dealt with the demons, you know. I think that was the problem for him. He clearly never got to grips with those things. I feel kind of lucky that I managed to take a look at those things. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be sitting here now.
Oh, what do you think was, if there is one, the biggest misconception about you?
I don't know whether there's a misconception about me, but I feel like I've been in the public eye and part of a famous band for quite a long time, but I don't think people really know who I am until this point, you know, and that's, so I don't know whether it's a misconception, but it's always been a frustration for me that I have got something to say and something to articulate, and I don't think I've done it up until this point. I think maybe it needed a solo record for me to be able to do that. So, yeah, I hope people will get to know me with this album. I've made myself very open and honest with it, and I hope people connect with that.
I read something also that you say that you were always physically, you always had a baby face and your voice is very angelical.
Yeah.
Was that a problem for you in the past to accept
Yeah.
that? Because inside, maybe you were different than that.
Yeah, very, very much so. You know, I felt very self-conscious about the way I looked, and I felt also like this kind of beautiful angelic voice that I have kind of gave the impression of this kind of pure, you know, character. And of course, I feel like there's a lot more darkness inside me, and yeah, and so yes, I kind of have wrestled with that over the years. Obviously, things are different now, I guess. I do feel confident in my own skin. And I feel like, obviously, with this record, because these are very much my own songs and it's about something that's so deeply personal, you are getting not only the outer voice, the angelic voice, but you're getting the inner voice, and that's really so important for me to express that. It just feels like the right time to do it.
What is the main message of the record?
Well, I think
if you allow me just to say something, because while you were with Keen, the lyrics were always very much about loneliness. It was dark at times, but yours is much more about being hopeful about life, perhaps.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I really hope more than anything else, now that this album's going out into the wider world, that anyone who's out there who feels like they're lost, that they're in a really dark place, that they feel hopeless, that actually the experience of listening to this record will give them some hope. Because, you know, I was in that place not very long ago, really not very long ago, and I thought there is no light at the end of the tunnel. My life is a complete mess. But I found a way, and that's what I've tried to do with this record, is articulate how I found a way out of what was a living hell. So I hope that people connect with that, particularly if they're in a lonely place. I mean, you know, I do feel like there's, particularly in this country, I don't know if it's the same in Brazil, but it feels to me like there is a shift these days to stop stigmatizing people with mental health problems. There are so many people out there with depression or anxiety or eating disorders or addictions. Exactly. And I think we need to shine a light on those things, and not be afraid to talk about them, and to try and become open about the way we feel. And that's what I've done on this record. So I hope that it gives people confidence if they hear it, to say, all right, this guy's bearing his soul, he's talking about intimate, personal details of his life. Maybe I can do that with another person, and maybe it'll help to ease the pain of the situation that they're in.
Do you think people understand, though, people that never suffered of depression and panic attacks? It's very difficult for someone that never had it to understand it. I think this is the biggest struggle, right?
It is, yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think there are enough people out there who've experienced those feelings to you know, make something happen, to change the way we look at mental health. But you're right, it is true. It's like, you have those people who've never experienced that stuff. They say, you know, pull your socks up, get on with it. But you know, and actually, it's not as simple as that. It's never as simple as that. These are deep-rooted emotional problems that require a lot of, you know, care and attention, and a lot of sort of tenderness and kindness. You know, it's not the solution of pull your socks up will never work for that. So, you know, I'm one of those who's experienced anxiety, depression, addiction, you know, and I want to shine a light on those things and make them less stigmatized.
What's the connection with Brazil? We need to talk a little bit about Brazil. What is connection? Because you've been there.
Yeah.
And do you know Brazilian music?
Well, you put me on the spot there. some Brazilian music. Yeah, I mean we've been there quite a few times and sort of enjoyed the culture of being there. I don't specifically know a great deal about Brazilian music. I'm gonna be honest with you here.
I will send a few music. I will send a few.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Few artists and a few stuff. But what did you like most when you've been there? The
spirit of people.
Yeah.
And I guess there's the dance is very strongly linked to music in Brazil. Would that be correct? Dancing, yes. They're the two things are kind of, very connected to each other. That was certainly my impression. And so, of course, when you go there, like, a little indie band from the UK, we don't expect to see people kind of dancing and completely losing it, because that's not the way people particularly do things in this part of the world. So when we go to Latin America, Brazil, and people kind of they just have this openness and this desire just to kind of be free and to just dance and let themselves go and have a great time at one of our gigs. It's very kind of, it was a very surprising feeling. And I think that kind of passion above anything else is what I look forward to most when I think of going back to Brazil, which I'm sure I shall be doing.
Concerts in Brazil are always very passionate, right? People are
Yeah.
very excited to be there.
It's strange because I guess that's what you guys know. But for us, it feels very exotic and very different, because we just don't get that. Not really in Europe, So maybe, Spain, Portugal, you might get a bit more kind of a vivacious crowd, but it's nothing like coming, down your way. It's just craziness. It's lovely.
One of the last questions now, this is a question that it can feel a bit nostalgic, but I think in a kind of way, I always wanted to ask you this because, Keen, yourself, are part of that generation of bands with Franz Ferdinand, that rock indie vibe that took over 2005, 10 years ago. Where is that? Where is this kind of music? I was interviewing Travis the other day. Travis, and they were saying, things, we are still here, but it's kind of, we are not. I think the music industry or scenario changed so much.
It's crazy, isn't it?
What do you think about that? Do you feel nostalgic? Do you miss?
No, I don't. No, I don't really feel nostalgic. I'm more interested in the present, And I think there is lots of great music. The thing that's changed is the digital music and streaming and iTunes and all of these things have changed the landscape of music, and it's very hard to keep up with that. But I suppose you have, at the time when we released Hopes and Fears, and you say there were those, quite a lot of like-minded bands around. Music still worked in a kind of more cohesive way culturally. You felt like, all right, you had Britpop, and then you had, these kind of bands of the early 2000s, kind of indie bands like us and Franz Ferdinand, and then since the advent of digital music, you just have lots of very diverse things, and anything goes. And the album is becoming more of a redundant art form, which I'm sad. That I am sad about.
Okay.
And nostalgic for. But nevertheless, that's the way things are going. You just have to embrace the times. And there are lots of things that are exciting about how immediate music is these days. So no, I'm not that nostalgic for it. But I've got my own record out right now, so.
So there's no reason to be nostalgic.
No, exactly.
Are you a technological person? Because I can see that you have Twitter and Facebook. I don't know if it's if you're yourself doing that all the time. But do you like it? Do you like social networks? Do you like this thing?
I've only really kind of got into using them in recent years, and I think if they're used in the right way, they're really healthy and helpful.
Yeah.
You know, for example, when I first got onto Twitter, I started I thought of it as a way of kind of being mischievous and opinionated, and I felt kind of ashamed actually after a while about being that way, because there's enough negativity in the world, there's enough bad shit happening, and I don't really want to add to it anymore. So nowadays I have a policy with Twitter that I am only going to put something up there if I feel it's something that's a force for the positive, you know. So, you know, but what I love about it is how direct it is. And, you know, I think the same with Facebook. You know, there's no wall between you and your fans or the people who are interested in your music. And that's a really wonderful advance, I suppose, in technology, because it's, you know, it's cut out. Sorry to say this to you, but in some ways it does cut out the middleman, you know, and you can give a version, your own version, without any editing, you know, well, only the editing you do yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing that I think is also a danger. You know, I think this particularly with Facebook is this idea of presenting, you know, we were talking about mental health, and I don't think it's a particularly good thing to always be presenting an edited version of yourself, which is kind of what you do on, well, I think a lot of people, I've noticed anyway, friends and family and so forth, the version that they put up on Facebook is kind of edited, and it gives an impression that everything's okay.
Yeah.
And let's be honest,
It's not.
with all of our lives, we've all got problems, and, you know, and it'd be good to let them out a bit more often. So, you know, I do worry about presenting that kind of, you know, brand me. You know what I mean?
Everything is shiny, perfect.
Yeah,
that's Facebook.
And I think life's much richer and more interesting when you get to the nitty gritty and the misery and the sadness.
What if you go online and you see comments on YouTube and the videos from Keen? No, but there's so.
I did it the other day. I made the stupid mistake of looking at YouTube comments.
What did you find?
It's horrific. I mean,
I found good ones.
oh, there are plenty of good ones, but, you know, it does seem to, particularly with YouTube comments, that does seem a place where people with lots of shit going on for them seem to go to vent and to say some really kind of awful stuff. And yeah, so I don't know why it is with YouTube in particular. You really get the craziest behavior on YouTube.
Yeah, I think it's because they're reacting in this right away from the music or from the video that they're watching. So it's like the reactions, like the same years ago if you were watching a television show and then you were. But
it's strange because I look at, you know, like something like Twitter, people's comments, because they're tagged to me. When I read them, there's very seldom anything that's nasty or negative. But it seems on YouTube that etiquette goes out the window. And the thing for me is, like I say, I think people do go there to vent. And lots of internet forums, whatever it might be, the people use them they've got their own insecurities or, you know, process going on, and they use those platforms to kind of vent, and maybe you're unlucky enough to be the person that they are using, you know, to vent spleen on. So I think in future I'm not going to be reading comments, because that's the other thing. For all the great comments that people write, your eyes just get drawn to the one or two negative things, and that's part of, you know, human self-loathing, and I just do not want to entertain that. So
but it's so nice to read the comments. I love it. And some of the comments I was reading last night, by the way, just about a few particular songs of Keen, they were really nice. They were like the same things that the Keen songs struck my life at the time. Like someone was saying, when I listen to this song, I cry all the time. Is that the kind of comments
That's
people come to
that's
you?
that's the lovely stuff, isn't it? When you know that something you've done connects with people, makes a difference in their lives. That's very special, you know. So yeah, but I don't. Those are the ones that I've gloss over. I'm looking for the really nasty, horrible, offensive stuff.
No Googling yourself. Two last questions. What's your favorite Keane song?
My favourite Keane song is.
I am curious to know about that. I'm not putting yourself as
Perfect Symmetry.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
You surprised?
interesting. I'm surprised. Yeah. Why?
Well, look, Can I give you two?
Two. Okay.
Perfect Symmetry, because it's just an amazingly constructed song. To sing it is just out of this world. It's just such kind of an exhilarating song to sing. And in terms of what it says, I think it's a very profound song. So there's that. But it's quite. I guess it's quite a political song. And so the song that's the flip side to that is My Shadow, which is a less well-known song, and is a song about kind of friendship and compassion and all right. Yeah, a song about friendship and compassion, and
Okay.
I think it's a very sweet song. I've always felt very attached to that one.
Last question. Are you ready to be back in the spotlight?
Yes, I am, I would say. Yeah. I'm aware of all the pitfalls and dangers that lay ahead, especially if things do go well, in fact.
Like this interview, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I forced your answer now.
Yeah, good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Obrigado.
Obrigado. Yep.
Obrigado.
That's one of the few, Portuguese words I
That
can
you
say.
know.
Yeah.
Então, Chaplin é uma entrevista exclusiva para vocês. Novo álbum, The Wave. I wonder what's going to be the name, The Wave in Portuguese. It could be A Onda.
A Onda.
A Onda.
A Onda. Okay.
Entendo? Português
Onda.
perfeito. A Onda.
Yeah.